watching Managing Day to Day with me, Christina Laster, and National Parents Union. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all thriving. Hello to America's beautiful children. We love you. And so, as you can see, I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Rashad Turner, my brother. Hello, Rashad.
Good morning, Queen. Good afternoon. Good
Parents
afternoon
Union.
here.
Yeah, well, it's 11:02 right here.
It's
So
still morning.
we're working on catching up. We working on
Yes.
catching up. So, for my national viewers, can you please tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I
Thank you for
appreciate you,
coming.
Queen. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing this show. We got to get these messages out here. We got to be talking about education. So, as Christina said, I'm Rashad Turner, founder and executive director of Minnesota Parent Union. We're a family powered education alliance providing a lot of one on one support for free to families here in Minnesota, families looking for good schools, families looking for support in dealing with an issue at their current school, whatever families need. We try to be responsive to families' needs and just have their backs. Another big piece of our work is what we call advocacy campaigns. So some of y'all might be familiar with our National Day of Action that's coming up tomorrow, where we are
Yay!
demanding,
National Day of Action.
yeah, we hopefully all around the country, folks are
Keyword
demanding
action.
action, right? We got to do the talk, but we also got to do the action. So
Right.
tomorrow, one of our big advocacy campaigns demanding internet for all. There's over 15 million students in the country who are currently logged out of access to the free public education. So we'll be down at Comcast in St. Paul, Minnesota, raising some noise, making some noise,
Yes.
trying to create that awareness. But that's a big part of our work, right? Is really changing policies, following the lead of families, and making sure that our education system provides a quality education for our children. So that's the short, sweet overview. But
Right.
I'm in this fight just like you. We in this fight
We
together.
in the trenches, just like the rest of you wonderful families. Want you to know, you know, we're not sitting on some throne somewhere
Mm-mm.
giving orders or monopolizing on the power. We're trying to put actual power back in your hands, right?
Yes, yes.
Over your students, control over your own children's education so that they thrive and not just barely survive through K through 12. You don't get a redo. I say that all
Mm-mm.
the time. And so today, you know, that power that we're going to be talking about and your journey on with that, um, we hope to either rehabilitate some of the traditional education addicts, or, some of y'all could just go cold turkey. That wouldn't be a problem with me. I know there's some traditional education fiends out there, but you know what? Today's your great awakening. And I
Yes.
hope that you go cold turkey and really think about the outcomes and the course of where your children are headed. So, talk about what led you to this journey.
So for me, Christine, I mean, there's been a lot of things. I think my childhood is where I'll start. Similar to a lot of our children out in our communities right now, there was a lot of trauma, a lot of drama. I lost my father to gun violence when I was about 2 years old. My mom kind of got caught up in the streets, struggling to deal with that. We were blessed, my brother and I were blessed to have my grandmother who raised us, who instilled the values that we have and that we use today to guide us. And I would
Right.
say that, when I think about education today, and I think about my experience as a young kid going through that system, and I'll be more specific, as a young Black kid going through that system, uh, I see a lot of similarities in what I experienced and what students are still experiencing today. So for me, I think I get a lot of passion, a lot of my drive comes from, you know, my life experience, but also, I've spent time working in that K-12 system. I've spent time working in higher education. And, what I was able to see there were systems that intentionally kept parents from understanding what's going on, intentionally kept parents from, understanding the power that we have when it comes to our public education system. And for me, those things were frustrating. And I think the most frustrating thing, right? I was one of those people that, I graduated from college, and I thought that I could change things from the inside, right? So I
Right.
was one of those, traditional approach type people. And it wasn't long before I realized that wasn't the way, right? That wasn't the way for me. That there wasn't things weren't able to change quick enough, fast enough for family.
Right.
So that part, left me just wanting to do more. And I spent a couple of years leading Black Lives Matter St. Paul here. We got that off the ground, I think in 2016 or somewhere around there. Um, and that was sort of my first dive into being on the front lines in that way, being vocal, really pushing the status quo. And when I think about, and we see recently, the police officers in Kenosha, Wisconsin,
Mm.
and I didn't watch the video, but
I did, and I got something to say about that, but I'm gonna let you finish
all
talking
right,
about the trajectory of your
yeah,
journey.
and I got something to say about that too. So I'm glad you got something to say, and I want to hear what you have to say on that. And the thing I was just going to say is, we see the injustices with our criminal justice system. We fought that fight for a couple of years, me and some of my teammates. But one of the things that stood out to me is that although we're not, seeing teachers shoot students in classrooms, the killings of the hopes and the dreams that occur within our school buildings was something that I felt needed to get that same attention as when we
Yes.
see police murders, right? So we, myself and a handful of other people just sort of thought about, what's a way to bring that same energy, the same focus, the same attention to the injustices in education. And the last thing I'll say is, when we were thinking about that, and this is probably true most places around the country, but when we thought about all of the efforts that had taken place in Minnesota to try to close what, folks like to call the achievement gap or opportunity gap,
Mm-hmm.
that they were all exclusive of parents and students,
Right.
right? So when we say we're a family powered education alliance, we believe that that is the way to change, right? That is the way to not only reform education, but really tear this thing down and make sure that when we're constructing the next system, parents and student voice, families of color are leading the way in what education looks like. Because we know for sure, Christine, and I'm sure it's impacting y'all out there, it's impacting everyone. COVID has changed things, but
Yeah.
here in Minnesota, education sucked before COVID hit.
Thank you.
And there's no way we can let education to continue to look how it has and
Right.
operate as it has after COVID. So
Right. And so I gotta validate, what you're saying. First of all, I wanted to talk about the importance of having that collective mentality and spirit with family and community, right?
yeah,
When you see someone drowning, give them a life jacket, a wrap.
yeah,
Don't just say, "Oh, that's a sad story," and walk away. That is not a humanitarian thing to do. And
mm,
everybody is not looking for a handout, but some people definitely need a hand up.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know, definitely need a hand up. You talk about, just that thought process of education, and going from the inside. I've been there, and I cannot say that I personally experienced inequities in my personal education journey. I could say really clearly, I might not know though, because I was the one Black student token,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Got that kind of people too, and I'm gonna need some of y'all just like me stand up and fight back, right? Because
exactly.
your experience is not everybody else's experience. My
Mm,
experience is not everybody else's experience. I went to the wealthy affluent neighborhood for school. What integration, token integration, whatever. I'm not gonna go there today. That's a whole nother episode. And was that prize that academia would esteem in elementary school, my path was set for me from going to that elementary school. And
mm,
I didn't realize it at the time. I'm in this elusive magnet gate program that has set the course for me to be an AP in college courses before I even graduated high school. And I graduated early, right?
Yeah.
Then went to a predominantly white esteemed private Catholic university, got the bachelor's, got the master's in business, and thought, I'm going to go. And at the same time, working for the school district, because I'm thinking things can happen from the inside, right?
So we
And
think.
really not realizing, because I had a scotoma. My friend likes to use this word scotoma, and I love it. Like my peripheral vision was not accurate. I didn't have 20/20. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
So I'm thinking all these things, and then I realized, like, every time I would stand up for students, and I'm talking about in the special ed arena,
All right.
I would get fought. My colleagues didn't really like me very much, and that's okay because I've been kicked out of better places. We're not going to talk about that today either. But I stepped out of that arena. And what I did realize as I began to build my family and have children, that the same opportunities that I had as a child was not their reality. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Unfortunately, yeah.
that's what thrust me into the level of fight, because I'm like, wait a minute, every generation should do better than the last. Why am I looking at what my children are being offered as far as education, and what my grandchildren are being offered as far as what is called education, and it's completely lacking from my standards?
Yeah.
And looking around for what could I do? What could they have? Do they have this? And the things that they considered as quality programs within the traditional framework were not quality to me.
Mm-mm,
I
mm-mm.
knew my
Nowhere
expectations,
close.
but they didn't have them. And having a Black son and grandson is what really got me to see we got some issues. Well, no, y'all got some issues, and so let me deal with them by removing them, because I can't change system behavior, but I can change my behavior.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna place them in, first of all, sanctuary and safety, because you're not gonna kill their spirit and their soul.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Can't let that happen.
right. And then second of all, in a place where they can thrive academically, right? And so that's what we have to do. And that is the mentality that we need to understand. Traditional education has already been disrupted as you have known it. Stop looking for grandma in them school.
Yeah.
The old
Yeah.
schoolhouse, maybe great grandma school was good,
Yeah. I feel you.
but what we've seen over the last 50 some odd years, ultimate failure for Black folks. And so
Absolutely.
just had
Absolutely.
to get that out there.
And the thing is, Christina, I say, that pathway that you described, that there's many children, thousands of children right here in Minnesota. And I'm thinking in Minneapolis specifically, where, they've passed this comprehensive district design, right?
Right.
And the pathways that it creates for Black and brown children are basically pathways that, in my opinion, lead to dead ends, right? Pathways
Mm-hmm.
that put you in a middle school where 4 out of 5 kids can't read, right? Put you in a
Mm.
school where, all of the ineffective teachers have been sent to this building because they
Yes.
haven't gotten the jobs done, but somehow they land where our babies are at, right? So those pathways are important. And I think that, you know, you had the ability, you had the knowledge to navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy that you're giving back, right? You're spreading that knowledge now, because that's
Right.
what it's about, right? My grandma would always say, if you knew better, you do better. And it's
Exactly.
just like when we're working with families, trying to support families, it's really about information, right? I mean,
Right.
schools hide that information and keep that information from families. But, I can share many of stories where our family advocates are working with families, and, we have this tool called the Minneapolis School Finder that we use. And it's got, academic data in there, some highlights about the schools that the schools, provide. But when a family sees this red bar that says persistently low performing as the school's academic rating, that there's a lot of tears that ensue after that, right? After that realization that, that they've been tricked by these schools, or they've been tricked by the school district into keeping their babies in schools where, you know, the teachers are ineffective. They're not, our babies aren't learning. So I
Right.
think, getting that information out there is key, but it's going
Yes.
back to something you said earlier, right? It's that information along with the action that's going to move our people forward when it comes to education and many other things too.
Right. And so just looking at how parents have this narrative that it's their fault, right? This
Yeah,
created
yeah,
narrative that when you try to fight for what's right for your child, the system tells you, well, it's your fault, and it's your child's fault. Um, really, no other business can do that, right?
mm-mm.
Fail you and your kid and then blame y'all and continue to get funding and continue to get money. Fund me and I'll teach my own kid,
Exactly, exactly.
and it's not a handout, it's public tax dollars that we
It's our
all
money.
contribute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so nobody's asking for a welfare check. Let's get that straight. We're saying that you haven't been able to effectively prove measurable outcomes on the multitudes of children that you serve, especially Black children, of that you purposely create gaps for, and then get more money to say, oh, well, we got to figure out a way to get their parents involved after you've traumatized them and their kids.
Yeah.
That's robbery. That's larceny. We say enough of that.
For
I'm gonna
real.
come with
For
that,
real though.
and
For real.
and and that's real. There is no way that I'm gonna tell my parents to sit in 10,000 equity meetings where nothing gets done, okay? And then you guys set up more meetings to meet again.
Exactly.
No, what I'm gonna do is equip them with the choices and the options they do have so that their kids thrive. Because we don't want to wait fighting from third grade to fifth grade and find out the kids still didn't learn anything. That's
Exactly.
ridiculous. Who does
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
What other business can do that?
None.
None. And so,
I talk to business people all the time, Christina, and it's just like, there's an information gap there
right,
on how our education system is doing sometimes. But once they have the information, I mean, that's the first thing they think about.
right,
Would their business be in business with these type of results? And it's a
right.
clear no.
Yeah, no, right? And so, with healthy competition, you have better outcomes, okay?
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with healthy competition. However, there is something wrong with monopolizing.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I always think about antitrust laws that apply to everyone else. You cannot monopolize, but yet we see this big monopoly when it comes to education, which controls and sets outcomes for the future of our children and generations. And we see this cyclical, perpetual, generational thing that takes place. And so, my people, today we say enough. Yesterday I said enough, but some of y'all might just be tuning in, and that's okay, because we all wake up at different times in the
Different
morning.
times, yeah.
Different times in the morning. And look, we embrace you. Let's go. But what we cannot do is continue to sit in fraudulent meetings where fiscal and fiduciary negligence is taking place, and they blame the fiscal insolvency on the kids. Matter of fact, California parents, I just thought of this as I'm talking. Go to Transparent California, and then I want to see if you post on them teacher blogs, poor teachers. Look up their pay, okay? And I want to know, did you get your money's worth, right? When you look at the teachers' pay, and then you go back and say, oh, poor teachers, but we got to figure out how this and this and that. No, they need to be working for what they get paid, and it's in 3 figures. I'll tell you, you'll be shocked. And so we have parents that are really, really trying to get a mobile hotspot, a working device, right? A packet, they're just whatever, grasping for whatever they can. Enough of that. No more equity meetings just to meet again. Really challenge yourself to what can you do so that your kid can thrive today and further on, right? And don't be afraid of doing that, and don't be apologetic about it. There's no excuses. I'm tired of this framework around poor teachers, the poor system. I just have no compassion because I know what's happened to our children.
Exactly. And I would say, Christina, right to that point, in Minnesota, and it's probably like this in California based on what you're describing, the focus has been on the system, right? And not on our children. And here in Minnesota, it's like I mentioned the Page Amendment earlier. families across the state of Minnesota are feeling like school districts are turning their backs on us, right? I mean,
Well, they
there's
have.
no support there. And it's clear that, we can't depend on the system, right?
No.
We've never been able to depend on the system. But I think we've always had this expectation of the system, right? And the school systems here in Minnesota aren't meeting those expectations, right? And it's one of those things where, you talked about the parent blaming. Well, it's, we're not responsible for what our
Right.
superintendents are not doing, right? We're not responsible for the creativity that our school leaders are showing that they don't have in these times. I mean, but what's happening in Minnesota is if you're affluent, you got some bread, you're going to be able to get the tutor, right? You're going to be able to find
Right.
that program to make sure your kids are learning. But the rest of us here in Minnesota, our Constitution reads that, we must be provided an adequate and uniform system of schools, right? And there's 87 counties here in Minnesota. In all 87 counties, parents are realizing that adequate and uniform, it's not
That's
enough,
basic. That's
right?
not
It's
even
basic.
basic,
It's nothing
right?
there.
That's not even basic, and then it's left as a matter of interpretation,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So what does adequate mean to you? Because I know what equity and the buzzword around equity is the furthest thing from equity, right? And
Exactly.
what we would say, every child gets what he or she needs to thrive.
Yes.
Um, those kind of buzzwords, I challenge people all the time, and I'm challenging my viewers today, stay away from the buzzwords. They're highly aromatic and deodorized words used to captivate and seduce parents, right?
Absolutely.
Into believing that work is going to be done. But when you look at the outcomes and you look at the history of outcomes, you see nothing really substantial.
No.
Not to move in the direction that in your heart and mind you want your child to move in. And then I have college students calling me saying that they were sold a bag of goods. I say, well, you was given a whole pillowcase of trick-or-treating candy and you didn't even know it was filled with pins and needles and razor blades, And so I understand, but we have to really have our thought processes right, because where your mind is, your body gonna follow, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, in them buzzwords, Christina, it's like,
yeah,
we got to unpack those, right? But I agree with you. Stay away from them, because
yes,
the biggest killers of our children's hopes and dreams, the teachers unions, they use
oh
those
man,
buzzwords like it ain't nothing, right? They've got that down packed. They know what to say, how to say it, to try to tug at our heartstrings, while at the same time, you look at the data and you look at the policies that they promote, and then the policies, like, right now we're fighting for a right to a quality education, right? We want to amend our Constitution to say that all of our children have an individual right to quality education. Well, who's blocking that? Who's saying no to that? The teachers unions.
right. The
And they're
biggest
going to show up.
monopolizers.
Yeah, they're going to show up to your rallies. They're going to bring the signs, Black Lives Matter, Native Lives. They're going to say all of that stuff.
Right.
While at the same time, right, they're not treating our children that way, right? Our kids' minds aren't mattering to them.
And they prove it with the lack of fight for cultural congruence with ethnically matched providers, right? How many teachers do you see actually representative of the population that they're educating and serving, right? And so if the teachers union really cared about quality education and equity and knowing the data, knowing the research, knowing that children want to aspire to be like those that they see and can, represent them and who they see their reflection in, then why aren't they fighting for that? And why are their narratives created? Oh, well, we can't find enough Black teachers. Yeah, right. Exactly. I know a whole bunch of overqualified ones right now with PhDs, ED, whatever. I'm sorry.
We're out
right. There. And the thing is that you ran the good ones off.
Yeah.
The ones that actually were looking to educate effectively and adequately educate children so that they could read and write.
Yes.
Okay, because there's kids graduating can't read and write at
No.
a second, third grade level. That's it. You read them off. And so, parents, families, I really need you to be looking at what's right in front of your face and seeing it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
Stay away from the highfalutin sounding conversations that make you feel good. And then you wait a month to hear back, and you wait 3 months to see any action. And it's very minimal because that's what the measurable outcomes look like. Like, let's progress 1% at a time, right?
And schools are happy with that, you know.
Yeah.
Our graduation rate increased by, I think, 0.5%, and they threw a parade dang near up here.
What kind of parade was that?
No, I'm just teasing.
Wait.
That was their equity parade. You know what I mean?
Oh, their equity parade.
Because they were, you know, celebrating a 0.5% increase in our graduation rate, but at the same time, not telling families that, you know, students are graduating uneducated. So when they get to college, and this is something that I got to experience firsthand when I was working at a community college up here, students would get there and would end up having to spend all of their financial aid dollars on remedial courses, developmental courses. Some of these students were having to take 8th grade math courses as they're 18, 19 years old, starting their first year in college.
Got to take a hooked on phonics course,
right?
Just so they can read and write. You know, and that to me is sick. Because criminal. How many teachers' hands did they pass that knew that they couldn't read and write, right?
Just passed them along.
And then, you know, nobody was really willing to aggressively intervene. I'm talking about consistently and aggressively intervene on behalf of these children. It is just horrible. And so, you know, I'm not here to bash teachers. There are good teachers out there, but the unions control so much of this mess, even to the point where they have their board members ready to go, even to the point where I've seen them have their own group of parents that come out and attack parents like us, you know.
They got their note cards.
Yes, they got their talking points, their rhetoric. And I'm like, are you a union rep? Like, who are you? Because you don't even sound like the authentic voice of parents, right? Like, you have been trained on these sales pitches that go out daily to lie to people and keep them bound and stuck in cyclical failure. And I bet you that is not the case for their children. As a matter of fact, when it comes to their children, they choose quality options outside of the district most of the time, and then tell you to keep your kids in the neighborhood school.
I mean, a lot of the teachers, a lot of the teachers here, Christina, it's like they don't live in the neighborhoods that they're teaching in. They might not live in the cities that they're teaching in, right? And it sounds very, very familiar to what we see with police departments, right? I mean, they're overseers. They're coming from their comfy, cozy areas, coming from their lake cabins or wherever, and overseeing our communities, right? And it's just like, when they're being that overseer, it's easy, you know, when you said earlier, hey, like, I'm not bashing teachers, right? Like, that's clear, Christina. I don't think you have to say that. It's obvious. You're not bashing good teachers, right?
Drinking my Diet Coke, brother. Yeah.
Hey, I got some water over here. But it's like what we see with police officers, right? What we see with ineffective teachers, it stems from a system, right?
Yes.
And that's why I say, you know, we have to knock the teachers union down a few notches, right? We have to level out the playing field for families. Otherwise, we're going to continue to get what we've been receiving. And it's unacceptable, it's criminal, but the only way it's going to change is for us as parents, right, as communities, to come together and fight that fight. And it's like you mentioned earlier, people wake up at different times, literally, but they also have that awakening around these issues at different points, right? So if you are a parent sitting at home and you're like, hey, what are they talking about, right? Now's the time to just learn, read something, ask some questions, right? That's the thing I think that this system has done a great job of, you know, pushing us to the side, ignoring our voices, and beating us down so much that we might not want to ask questions sometimes.
Yeah.
right? But when we ask those questions, we'll be able to hear if that care is there, right?
Right.
We'll be able to hear why or why not our children are learning or not, right? But if we're
Right.
not asking those questions, if we're not pushing the system, they're going to continue to put that wool over our eyes. They're going to continue to say those buzzwords, and things are going to continue to get worse, right? I mean, I would say for
Absolutely.
Black children in particular, when you're thinking about Black teachers, right? It, it was better 50, 60 years ago,
That's why I
right?
said what's happened
And
within the last 56
right.
years.
And now you hear these narratives around, well, these Black kids, I always say, like, they say, we can't teach them until we fix them, right? You hear these narratives that poverty is the reason why Black and brown children aren't able to learn, right? But we know from research, hey, all children are capable of learning, right? We're
Right.
born capable of learning. We need that aggressive intervention sometimes, right? We need that
Right.
aggressive support and that care to
Or
get
that
us
high
where we're
level of
going.
expectations when they come
Yes,
into your learning environment, right?
yes, yes,
That I
absolutely.
expect every single one of you as a teacher, you should be a molder of children's dreams, not a killer of them.
Yes, yes,
And so what the expectation needs to look like is that no matter what you look like, no matter what the color of your skin is, I expect for you to do excellently in my class, nothing less, and I will not accept anything less. My grandmother
exactly.
was that kind of teacher,
Yes,
right?
mine too, mine too.
And so it's really what is the thought when they see us and our children that creates the expectation of how they're going to educate them. And for the most part, we've seen that those uh, thought processes have not worked out well.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Not for,
you
not for
know,
our kids.
not for our kids. And speaking about, just the killing of the Black boy's soul and spirit, what happened in Wisconsin, totally horrible, right? And I did see the video, and I
Yes.
was just like, wow. You know, I was walking that day with my son around the neighborhood, and there was like a little pocket knife outside on the ground. And I had to admit, he went to go pick it up. Well, he's a 9-year-old boy,
Being a
he's a
kid.
9-year-old boy. But me immediately, just a little on edge about what was taking place and why are we still, dealing with this? Where is the humanity in this, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, I panicked and I said, put that knife down, because if your fingerprints, and I stopped, I was like,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
ever pick up a knife or anything that looks like a weapon on the ground, because your fingerprints are on that and nobody knows where it came from or what it happened. And he said, Mommy, I was just curious about
yeah.
how it worked.
Being a
And,
kid.
and I felt bad that I had to have that conversation with my son. How many other people that was walking on that same walking path saw that knife, or whatever, and didn't even have to think about that,
Yeah,
or had to have that conversation with their children who just may be curious and looking at something that's just on the ground. But I got to teach him to be cautious in certain ways that really
yeah.
thrust him into adulthood before he's really truly an adult. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to operate in fear like that. I'm going to teach my son the value of, having curiosity and being able to research things and understand things, but we're not going to operate off of fear. I'll tell you that much.
No, we can't, right? I mean, and that's, I haven't seen the video from Kenosha, Wisconsin, but I can guess what it looked like. I can guess what the officer's excuse is, right? And I think that, when you see or hear that excuse from the officers where they say that they were in fear, right? I mean, I think that, unfortunately, is all they need to say to be able to get away with killing us, right? And again, it's not the gun in the classroom that's killing our babies, but I would say it's that same mentality, right? Where
Right.
our lives aren't truly appreciated, right? Our children aren't truly appreciated, or your 9-year-old somehow, strikes fear, and
Right.
his teachers or their teachers, right? So it's just like, you know, with the police brutality stuff, I mean, it gets me frustrated. So that's why I haven't watched it. But
Right.
it also is a reminder every time. Not that we need to continue to get these reminders, but it's a reminder that there's a lot of work to do, right? It's a reminder that, you know, until we make things happen, things are going to continue to happen to us.
Right.
And
And
there's
so,
historical excuses that,
mhm.
you know, they're going to throw out there, but it's frustrating. I mean, it's sad that you got to talk to your son about that,
Right.
but it's
And
a
so,
must.
it is. But I decided that I'm going to frame the conversation differently because I'm not going to come from a place of fear or worry or panic.
Yeah.
There are people that really would like us as Black women to derive fear, panic, and worry about what is taking place to our men, but we need to come from a position of power and authority
Yes.
and moving
Yes.
forward. And so I checked myself on that. Yeah, Christina Laster had to check herself sometimes.
You
And
got
I
to do that.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. And so, talking about shifting mentalities, it takes that intentional focus practice around what am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? And maybe who could have influenced this thought process? And what's
Yes.
the truth,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And replacing that highly influenced thought process or mentality with the truth takes a daily, and that's why I say managing day to day, moment by moment, intentional, consistent, and unrelenting, challenging your own thought around norms and status quos, challenging your own thought process about how things look versus how they really are, and then helping other people to be able to do that. So we're not just talking about things that are comfortable. We're talking about what it actually takes for us to marshal in a new era of how
Yes.
we want future generations to do. You don't have to be a policy expert to
Mm-mm.
fight for children, to fight for your children. I don't want you to think like I'm unqualified. No, you're the most
Most
qualified
qualified.
person.
Yes.
And don't let anybody tell you that you're not, to push and fight for what is right for your child. And when you get finished, and I don't know if we'll ever get finished fighting for our kids, because you know what, I'm fighting for my adult children. But when you are confident in your position in that, go fight for another child. Okay.
Yes.
And that's how it happens. One person at a time, one family at a time. So speaking of that, what do you guys have upcoming and how can people find you?
Folks can find us. Our website is MN, abbreviation for Minnesota, mnparentunion.org. You can also text MNPU to 33339, and you'll get a little text message back. You'll be able to sign up, become a member, stay up to date. We're always collaborating with organizations in Minnesota, across the country. So again, tomorrow is the National Day of Action. I know the National Parents Union is participating in that, supporting our
Yes.
efforts up here in Minnesota and other efforts around the country. Bright Beam activists also leading the way on that. So that's tomorrow, different times around the country. But if you're in Minnesota, you can get to St. Paul. We're going to be starting our rally at 2:30 at the Comcast Twin Cities Regional Headquarters, downtown St. Paul. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And so if you have and I have announcements after he gives a final thought. If you have a final thought that you'd like to share, definitely, parents, we're be, being solution and action oriented, minded, challenging our own thought processes and challenging our mentality so that the next generation could do better than the last. So really, 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 that takes a moment by moment and day by day practice.
Yes.
And together we're going to be able to continue to push.
Yeah.
So just keep on fighting, keep on fighting. So if you have a final thought or words you'd like to share.
I mean, I'll just sort of pick up where you left off, right? I think that as parents, going against the system, it can seem challenging. It is challenging. It's not easy. But once you get that information, get connected with some other parents, you start to understand that a lot of us, unless we are, wealthy white families, we're dealing with some of the same issues, right? Whether you're in Minnesota, whether you're in California, whether you're out east, wherever you're at, get the information, hook up with some folks that are fighting the fight, have pure intentions, and we're going to get this thing done, right? I don't
Right.
think there's ever been a time in history, and I won't say ever, right? It's never always, but I think we're in a moment right now where parents are rising up all around the country. We're working together. People are understanding that, the system's not coming to save us. The system's not going to
No.
change on its own. So we have to be that force. We have to be aggressive. We have to be bold and get the information, right? Get the
Yep.
information, talk the talk, but also walk the walk, just like you do, Christina. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
I appreciate you too, my brother. Thank you so much for bringing your knowledge and wisdom to the show today and that vital information. Shout out to Minnesota Parent Union. If you want to find out more information about what he's talking about, the National Day of Action for tomorrow, it is posted on the MPU page. You can definitely go and see, what time that's going to be and definitely participate. Hey,
Yeah.
if that's the first thing that you do to step out into your boldness and audacity, good, whatever it may be, just do something. And I just really want to just give a thanks to extended family members, other family members that really pick up the charge and say, you know what, we're not going to leave anybody in this family and in this community behind, because you are the glue that holds
Yes.
it down, holds it together. And we don't want to ever just underestimate the power of that. It could just be something little, as the grandma that packs little lunches for kids during the day. You know what I mean?
It all counts.
Or the auntie or uncle that says, I'll talk to the kids today. It seems like you're a little bit frustrated. Or, the grandpa that reads a book, or teaches the children about history, the family historian or the community historian. You all matter in
Yes.
some way,
Yes.
and we appreciate and value you. Some of y'all that's on retirement, I say this all the time, we're gonna need y'all to come out of retirement, okay? Because we fighting for their lives and their livelihood. We have to seize this moment and continue to seize moments day by day in order to make sure the next generation does better than the last. And so thank you, my brother, for coming on the show and everything you do. We'll see each other soon. I'm sure, fight a good fight. All right.
I'm gonna send you them pickles too.
My brother Rashad is a extreme gardener.
Am I?
You got me triggered when he started talking about pickles. I like pickles. And so he has the most beautiful vegetables that he shows, and he's been showing pickles off and on. And so I've been harassing him about giving me some pickles. He said, "You really are unrelenting, are you?" I said, "I sure am." I think I kept saying it, but I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah,
seriously.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on, Christina.
Thank you. So you guys have been watching Managing Day to Day with me, Christina Laster, and National Parents Union. I do want to say thank you to all of those who contributed to the Grant Family Child Care campaign. We still have more needs, and so looking for equipment for the children. If you are willing to donate those new equipments that are necessary, you can look it up on my page. We were able to successfully pay for a year of internet access so that the 5 to 7 devices during the day could log on, but definitely have more needs. So if you're willing to contribute, you want to reach out to me and I can give you a list of the needs to be met as well. That's good. If you would like to donate, the page is up there. And so I really appreciate that. I will see you again on Managing Moment by Moment, Day by Day with me, Christina Laster, and National Parents Union. I hope you're all well. I hope you all thrive. Goodbye to America's beautiful children. We love you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.